Hi, welcome back. I'm home this weekend, so this is going to be done with my webcam, which is why it's not quite as bright as it normally is. And the reason that I didn't get this posted yesterday is because I was driving home and things happened, and so I am posting it today. Yay! Only one day off instead of three. So I have two books this week. First book is Tantalize by Cynthia Leitich. I do not know how to pronounce that second name. It's like Leitich, something like that. And this book is about a girl named Quincy Morris who her best friend slash first love is a hybrid werewolf. He's like half and half, like half werewolf, half human. And her family has owned this restaurant forever, and her uncle they've done a remodel on it, so it's going to be a vampire themed restaurant. And of course, everyone's kind of like, I'm not entirely sure you can do that, but they're gonna try it anyway. So, Quincy is, she's about 16, and this restaurant is her life. It's her legacy from her mother. And so she's very involved in it, and there is the chef, the main chef they have, gets murdered. And he's like one of her family. And of course she's heartbroken about it. But they have to hire a new chef because they're opening in like 6 weeks. So they have this new chef named Henry Johnson. And Henry is odd. He's an interesting, odd man. So, in this book, I'm not entirely sure how I felt about this book. It felt like me kind of reminiscent of Twilight, but with less romance. It was more of the gothic horror side of the YA, urban fantasy movement. And I'm not really a gothic horror kind of person, but it was really cool for what the book did. I think the writing was really good, and there weren't really lulls in the narration, although Quincy, like, her personality seemed to change like halfway through, and I understand how it happened and why it happened, but I still kind of was like, she doesn't feel like she's supposed to feel. She's not that character with, because you want a heroine with some fire in her and some conviction, and Quincy didn't quite feel that way to me. It wasn't a bad book. It's just probably not one of my favorites that I've read of this genre. It's an interesting book. I definitely recommend it, especially if you like the more gothic horror side of things. It's not like horror. It's like, ooh, that's intriguing. As I assume Dracula would be if I ever read Dracula. I swear, I will read it. I am going to. So, anyway, Tantalize by Cynthia Leitich. And the next book is actually a book that I've been meaning to read for a while. And when I tell you what it is, and that I have never read it before, most of you will go, gasp! What is wrong with that girl? So, anyway, it's Seek by Laurie Halse Anderson. I know, please don't beat me. So I have heard a lot about Seek. I heard about it for years, and I took the YA Lit class, and we talked all about it, and I've never read it before, and for a long time I didn't even know what it was really about. And I just finished reading it, and it was a really interesting book. It really was, and I like Melinda's voice. Melinda has a very distinct voice in this, and you can see some of the symbols, but you also kind of get the little satire of, you see the symbols in this book, but she's talking about how her teacher's like, there's symbolism in everything, and you're like, yes, I understand you. There is symbolism in everything, and all these English teachers try and make you find it, and sometimes a tree is a tree. Sometimes not a tree. Sometimes it's a symbol, but sometimes it's a tree. So, it was it was fun to. It wasn't fun to read like, ha! I laughed the entire time because it was such a romp. No, it was a good book, and I can see how this book would make a big impact on a lot of people, especially about speaking out about things like sexual assault and rape and molestation and things like that. It's I can tell it would be really, really hard to talk about something like that. And this book kind of tells people that, you know what, you don't have to just get over it because people think that you should move on. And yes, it touches your life, and it's okay to have issues with dealing with it. But you also shouldn't keep silent about what's happened to you, because maybe your story helps someone else. And maybe even just telling your story for yourself helps you move on. And so it's not a very long book, but I can see how it's a very powerful book for what it does. So it's Speak by Laurie Halse Anderson, and it was the winner of the Prince Award. Probably like way back in 1999 when it was first published. And so it's a good book. It's a good YA book. I recommend it probably for anyone who has ever dealt with any sort of sexual assault, anyone who has ever known someone who has dealt with it, and or even if you never have, just it's a good book. It's a powerful book. It's a book that will impact lives. So those are the two books that I have. Again, I'm kind of slow at reading, and we're getting to finals week where I don't have a lot of homework, but I do have some, which is more than I've had most of the quarter, and so I also have things that I'm doing for people, which is there's a lot of them, and I must get them done all within like the next week. So I will be back on Friday, and I will have more books, and I promise that I will try not to push it to Saturday like I did this time. So, happy reading.